Hi, this is Sally Wood for Be Inspired, and today I'm going to show you how to shorten some trouser legs and also to take in the side seams. This young gentleman is going ultra modern, which of course is something that's been around before, but that's okay. So I'm going to be taking 4 inches off the length of these trousers and then re-tapering them so that they look not quite like drain pipes, but sort of a more tailored look than it would leave him. So let's get on with it. I'm going to measure up the side seam here 4 inches and mark it, and then I'm going to do the same on this side seam. Flip it over, it'll be easier, and mark that too. It's like 4 inches. So I'm going to make any alterations to that point. I'm going to cut that back 2 inches, so basically this comes off and I'll use the 2 inches in the hem. So here's my new mark. What I want to do is measure across the base there, which is 6.5 inches, and the base here is the same, just 6.5. Okay. Sometimes trousers might come down at a different angle, so I always double check any sizes that I've got. And I will also do the same for the back, because he actually wants them slightly narrower, and that's to 8.25 inches. It should be the same, but just in case, that's fine. I'm always intrigued because you never know. The young gentleman wanted these taken to 1 inch narrower than this, so we're going to mark that out. Now, using a pencil, I am actually going to mark my 1/2 inch on that side and also on this side. When you look at trousers, you'll see that they come around at an angle and then straight. But because I want to bring it into here on this side, I'm going to line up my mark here with here. So although the perv comes so far, it can be straightened out probably to there. You want to go up over the stitching because you're going to be using those stitches. So there's my mark there, and then I'm actually going to take my seam back out just a little bit to the bottom here. Otherwise you're going to end up with a hem that doesn't do what it's meant to do. So it comes into here and then back out. So it's like a V here. That's that side. I'm actually going to mark this one on the other side because I really prefer to come from the top down, not the other way up. Let me remark my 1/2 inch or a centimetre, whatever it is you fancy doing. The other reason for doing it this way, a bit off both sides, is that I won't have to steam the fold mark on the front and back of the trousers. It should automatically go into place. And again here, straighten those trousers out so that that seam is nice and straight. And again, I'm going to line up my mark on this side of the ruler with here, and I'm just going to take my yardstick into the stitches which are right up at the top here, and again I'm going to mark from those stitches all the way down. Don't use a biro. Pencil is quite enough, like that. And again I'm just going to take that out. Then compare. So this is the inside leg. I'm going to pop that down there, and it looks like it comes in at about the same point. And just to make sure it does, I'm just going to put a pin, a dressmaking pin, not one of my upholstery pins, at the same point, like that. And that's where I'm going to start sewing and then join up. Flip this, compare the other side. Now these are the outside legs, and compare again. These just don't quite look right. They are down here, but this one comes out further and up, and this one comes into here. So I need to remeasure, straighten out the legs and redo the line up because they have to be exact. Otherwise he'll have one leg that's chunkier around the knee than the other, and that's not fair. That's not on. So I've popped this underneath. I have the stitch length at number 3.5. and I've lined it up, and here is my pin which corresponds on the other inside leg, and I am going to stitch over the original stitches And as I get to the pin, I'm going to pull the pin out. I'm not going to pull as such, I'm going to let the fabric go through. As I come just past where the pin was, I'm going to start coming out and following that new line which I made. So I'm just going to start pulling out onto the new line and on down. Now I'm quite lucky because I have a little red arrow that denotes where I'm meant to be sewing, so I'm going to keep an eye on that. The other thing is I haven't undone the side seam. I'm keeping that in place for now because that's holding everything in place for me. Now as I get towards the bottom of the new hem, I'm going to pull out my second pin, do a couple more stitches. The needle goes down, the foot comes up, and I'm going to follow that new line for about 2 to 3 inches, basically almost to this where I can't open the seam up very much. And I will reverse, although most of this is going to come off. So that's one side done. Then I'm going to do the other seams that need to be done. Now that I've got the new seams in, I'm just going to cut towards the new seam like that. Could use a seam ripper, could use your scissors. If you are using your scissors, just be really careful not to cut the fabric. You can start off at the bottom, very carefully pulling the fabric away and then cutting the stitches open like that until you can't cut them anymore. Eventually come to a point where the stitches run into the new stitches like that. That's where you want to stop it. As soon as you can't see any stitches to remove because they've gone into the new stitch line, remove any extra threads, top and bottom, so from the new and the old. And again, do this on all 4 seams. Also, just clean the threads out of the seam because you don't want that in there. Just takes a minute to scrape those out on both sides. Now always check your seam. I just pulled the thread through here and it just carried on unraveling up the trouser leg, which is not good. It's not a chain stitch seam, it's actually 2 separate threads, so that should not have happened. I am going to have to now sew all the way down and join here. So when you do this kind of thing, always double check that your seams are holding. It's very important. Poor lad could have gone dancing and then his legs hanging out. In order to do that, I've gone back a couple of inches. I'm actually going to come across from this side just slightly, so the outside edge and on in, but not so much that when I open this up there's going to be a mark there. And I'm also this time, because of that, going to do a reverse, but it's only maybe 3 stitches. And I am going to very carefully go down. I'm going to have to realign that seam like that and carry on going. Sewing through the stitches that are already there. And I'm just going to go over my own stitches. See, this is really weird. I'm going to go over my stitches by about 1.5 inches. And then I know everything is secure. These trousers are linen, but I'm not going to be ironing them on linen. I'm going to be ironing them on wool and silk setting. I've got a rolled up pillowcase which I'm going to put on up through the leg of the trousers like this, because I don't want to be pushing this into the other side. I don't want it to mark. With the end of the iron, I'm just going to push that into place. Oh, there we go. A little bit of shush. And as I go up, it's going to get a little bit difficult for me to do. Just work on that seam so it's out and nice and flat. And then I'll pull that up a little bit further. Because where this seam gets narrower and into the original seam, it sometimes moves a little bit. So you really want that to be as flat as you can possibly make it. And I'll flip the leg like that. And I'll do the other side exactly the same way. Maneuver it up like that. You just need to finger press it and then just with the edge of the iron or the toe of the iron, just work that in. And I'll open the end here just a little bit. You can see where the original line is here. Any threads, pull them out if you can. And I'll pull that through. And on this side, I haven't got any marks for where it was pressed, just the straight sewing here and on this side, and that's what you want it to look like. You don't want to have this new seams pressed in at all. You just need that like that. And I'll do the other leg. Now I'm going to measure 4 inches from the hem up, and I'm actually going to put a pin at that mark. The reason is it is really hard once you've pulled seams in like that to get where they need to be. So I'm going to use that as a way of folding here. I'm going to fold it on that mark and fold it on that mark and push the bottom of the trouser leg up through. I shouldn't have to measure too much once that's in position. Now I'm going to peek up here. It's like playing peekaboo, because I'm going to have to put the measuring tape on the original hem and measure down. That's still not quite right. There we go. Measure from the original hem to here. It's easier if you can do it all in one piece, but because it's quite long, I'm going to make a mark. There's my 4-inch mark. I'm going to put a little press mark there, like that. And although I've marked this at 4, I'm going to double check. I always double check everything if I can. Actually, that's a little bit generous. So I'm going to roll that down, take my pin out, because it was only really to give me some idea of where that was. So here we go. Just wriggle it until it is exactly where you want it, because you want both legs to be identical, especially on a look like this. Still a little bit high. Roll that in. This one and the one on that seam, hold it in place. Pull it tight and then press towards there. Then go to your 3rd point, which is the other side seam. Measure down to your 4-inch, which is here. Stretch it out between the 2 points and iron back into place. And then your 4th point, which is either centre back or centre forward, open it up. So the initial mark is just to give you an idea of where you're going to be going to. It's easier. Measure from there down. There's my 4 inches. Again, I'm going to pull this one out. And again, this one to here. Push everything up and then stretch it from one point to the other and iron it. Then you can pull it out. We're going to measure down from here for our cut mark. I usually start on one of the folds because it's nice and easy, and I'm going to give it 2 inches. So there's that. That's the start. Then I'm going to separate it. I'm not going to cut both sides at the same time. It's usually a bad thing to do. Pop that down, cut to the center, open it up so you can get all the way through to the other side. Roll the trouser leg round and then cut again towards your 2-inch mark. And I do it this way. I even lift it up the second time round because I don't want to be cutting anything I don't need to be cutting. I have in the past made terrible messes of things, and when you're doing it for somebody else, it's not okay to do that. So now I can cut all the way across to that and join it up. So having taken that off, I'm going to fold this up to the new hem, and as evenly as possible work my way round. See, I've got a nice hem going in here. It's not quite touching the new hem, it's a little ways out from there. Once that is in place, I can fold this up so it's like a double hem, and if I like where it's going, that needs to be straightened out just a little bit. Push all of this back up. I double check everything, and trouser legs aren't always as easy as they look. So now I'm going to zigzag along here and then cut it all back. Now I've taken the stand off here because I want to pop this around here. What I'm going to do is I'm going to cut this back to the outside of those zigzags. Just be really careful you don't cut the zigzags off. I think I'm going to press it over actually. I think that would give it a nice look. And all I'm going to do is I'm going to fold along that line that I did iron and just press it back into position. You could actually take it a little bit further out. I just like to have it nice and close. And then I will repress it up. so it goes in really quite evenly, because sometimes when you first put it in, it's not as even as it could be. So here goes. Because really the first time you put anything in is just to mark it, and I'm only pressing the lower half. I'm not going over my stitches because I don't want to leave marks in, but I don't need to. So pull that out and even that up. I'm going to line the side seams up like that and pin it there and there. I always hand sew my hems in, so I don't want them moving like that. And then all I do is I pull it and find the center here. The fold here should be in line with the fold there, so I'm going to pin that one, and the fold here should be in line with the fold there. So basically I've just got 4 pins holding it. Now I'll fix the other leg to look like this one. I'm going to just turn the bottom of the leg inside out, and then with my thread I'm going to come up and out quite close to there. Now that should hold the little knot that I've put in place into place. There we go. And I'm going to come back a few stitches from there. Because it's on here, on the seam here, it doesn't matter. I can pick a few stitches up. I'm going to pull that through. And then I'm going to go down here and pick up a few stitches. It's easier if you wrap the fabric over your finger, pull the thread all the way through, and then again come back a few stitches. Make sure that the thread comes to the back, because basically what you're doing is doing a cross stitch over the top so that the hem is kept in place, and then across. It's usually just shy of 1/4 inch, and pull it on through. I'm coming to the single layer of fabric, so again wrap that round my finger. The only difference is this time I'm literally just going to pick up a couple of stitches from start to finish, less than 1/4. You can pick 3 up if you wanted, that's up to you. Push that and make sure your thread is at the back. Push that forward and pull it all the way through. It's a slow way of doing it, I'll agree, but this is how I was taught and this is how I still do it. If it's a hem that I don't want stitching to show through, so again back and just a couple of stitches. Make sure that that's to the back and forward, and continue all the way around. Do not pick up stitches on the bottom side like I did there. That does not do very well. So the top is always just the top, and it's such a long thread to start off with because it goes 3 times around the area that you want to be sewing, and then you don't have to join anything. Always make sure the thread is behind the needle. When you get to the folds, make sure the folds are still in line. It's very important to do that. And I usually put my finger over, or my thumb I should say, over the thread as I pull it through so it doesn't knot. When you get to the second seam, again make sure they line up as closely as possible. And again, because it is on the seam there, you don't have to worry about going all the way through. Once that's sewn into place, you just carry on going. Make sure you do it the right way. Don't put 2 on the same side, because that makes it a little bit awkward. This fabric is quite closely woven, so it's a little bit awkward for me to find the stitches. Not only that, my eyesight's becoming crap, which doesn't help. Shame, because this is how I earn my living and I can't see very well at all. Make sure that's in line before you get there. Now as you come into the first side where you started, carry on going. Now I usually start at the seam because I think that's a nice place to start, and I'm just going to overstitch here, just 2 stitches like that. That should hold everything. And then I'm going to go forward a little ways, back maybe 2-3 stitches, and forward, back and forward. I'm going to cut my threads, turn the hem the other way, and if you see anything like that, just with your fingers, and for the most part they go away. And that is how I do the hems on trousers or a skirt that I don't want the stitching to show through. Otherwise I'd have top stitched all the way around. I'm pleased with that. I hope they will be. Thank you for joining me today. I hope that I've managed to impart some useful information on either how to take trousers up or in. So putting a new hem on a pair of trousers or taking them in. They're quite easy. They really are. And for many years that's how I earned my bread and butter. in between the upholstery and sewing, so it's always handy to know. If you want to see more from me, subscribe, hit the bell button, and a few thumbs up would be absolutely brilliant, then I know how I'm doing. In the meantime, see you later, take care, ciao.